Here we go.
All right. What's up, Wayne?
Good.
What's up, Wayne? Good.
It's good. Everything's good with me.
Uh-huh.
I'm retired. Got a little golfing over the weekend.
Yeah.
Nice day yesterday. Yeah.
What about you, Scott? Doing any golfing?
Nope.
Neither.
No.
I don't understand the sport.
You hit a white ball, from a tee to the hole in the green.
You ever hear the whole Robin Williams thing?
Oh, it's beautiful.
Isn't it?
Oh, that's great.
We're going to do it 18 times.
If anybody hasn't ever seen that, even if you're not a golf fan,
Ooh, we
it's
hit
hilarious.
the ball into a gopher hole.
It's hilarious. Probably look it up on YouTube or something.
Yeah.
Robin Williams golf and see the thing.
It's hilarious. It's absolutely
First time
hilarious.
I saw it, I had tears in my eyes. I was laughing. So
You ever see it, Scott?
I have not.
Oh
no.
my God! It
No.
really is. I always thought, to me, Robin Williams was a genius when it came to comedy, and he was just so good. When it came to just being in the moment.
Mhm.
So he was the only celebrity that really affected me when he died. Michael Jackson, no. All the others, whatever, that's fine. Good luck. But I don't know. He that one actually bothered me.
the way he died, yeah, that was even worse.
Right, right. Did you ever have a celebrity like Whitney Houston? I mean, I even run a joke on Whitney sometimes. It's probably classless, but I do it anyway. Say Whitney.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess
She's been clean for 8 years now. Congratulations, Whitney.
that was bad.
Choke it back, Scott.
That
Choke
was
it
bad.
back.
That was bad. Oh, jeez.
I know.
So, did I? I don't. I guess when John Wayne died in '79, I grew up. My dad was a big John Wayne fan when he grew up, and so I was a big John Wayne fan. And when he died, I was like, but you knew it was coming because he had cancer for a couple of years.
Right.
So it wasn't, with Robin Williams, that was a shock. You
Yeah.
expect him. He was only what,
Yeah.
50s, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Something like that. It was awful. It was absolutely awful. Did you ever have a celebrity that affected you that died?
No.
You?
I just told you
Am I?
that affected me.
Yeah.
Oh, John Wayne.
John
Well,
Wayne.
again,
Oh, he affected.
so-
Okay, all right.
Yeah, the
all right,
effect.
all
Oh,
right.
yeah, that's what I said when he died. Yeah, because I grew up. My dad, he was a hero to my dad, and so I followed suit. Nowadays, if someone, I would say probably Clint Eastwood because I watched all his movies, and he's like 93, 94 now or something like that. So I haven't heard nothing out of him. He was making movies up to a couple of years ago. So, but old timers, you get the shocks here and there. Somebody passed away, and you didn't expect. So
It is true.
And you look at some of them now, and I forget who it was. I was looking at the other day, and you're looking like, wait a minute, the person's how old now? 72 or 70? You're like,
yeah.
how the hell did that happen?
Look at the
You know,
Rolling
and you're
Stones. They're out on another tour, and Jagger and Richards are 80.
We're going to see Rick Springfield in 2 weeks at Mohegan Sun. He's 74.
Wow.
Yeah. I saw the Stones back in 2016, and they were 72 then.
Yeah.
Now they're 80, and he's still running around the stage. And he's even had some heart issues, heart surgeries and stuff like that. So it's like
You can't say anything about Keith Richards.
Well, I was going to say Keith Richards has got to be 150 or something.
he looks 150, but he's only 80. And
He's
and
pickled.
He's pickled. He's had
Yep.
so much drugs through that body, nothing's going to kill him.
I don't know. So we're kind of easing into our conversation for today.
So this is the last day of April.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it's going to be May already.
It's gonna be May.
Yeah, what do we have going on tonight, Mike?
I don't know. We're gonna let Mr. Davis talk about that. Look at me; he's glaring at me already.
Hello, kitty.
Hey, kitty. Tonight there's a big town meeting, right?
Public hearing.
Public
tonight.
hearing,
Yep.
town meeting, public
Public hearing.
hearing
Yeah, for the budget.
for the budget.
Yep.
And we should welcome in Mr. Scott Davis, who's the Board of Finance Chair. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning. Interesting new Facebook picture. Please look it up. Search him, Scott Davis on
Hello,
Facebook.
Kitty.
Hello, Kitty.
Hey, if you can't laugh at yourself, right?
Yeah,
Life's too short.
that's true. That's true. I absolutely agree with you. Is this one of the more difficult years for crafting a budget that you have seen with your time on the Board of Finance? Excuse me.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm okay.
I'm trained in CPR, just to let you know.
If it's not,
I'm safe. Screw 911. Just Wayne's here.
Yeah, I would say if it's not the most difficult, it's one of the most difficult. Challenging is probably a better word. So yeah, we have I got a lot to share with you.
Sure.
If you want.
Yeah, no. I mean, this is your hour.
So, yeah, we have the public hearing tonight. That's at 7:00 at the Griswold Middle School cafeteria.
Yep.
If fingers crossed, if everything goes as planned, it will also be streamed this evening. This is the opportunity for the public to come out and comment on the budget. And the biggest change this year compared to previous years is in the past, we'd have a public hearing and we would present a pure budget in the sense that we did no work on it ahead of time. So you'd go to public hearing, public would comment based on what they saw, which was just what was presented. Then we'd go back and we'd work on it for a meeting or two or three and craft a budget that no longer represents even close to what was at the public hearing, send it to selectmen to go to town meeting and then referendum. So they'd vote on something that really was not at all what they had initially, seen. Anybody that came out and, took care to come out and make comment. So this year we went a little bit different route. We got the budgets presented to us. We did some work over a couple of meetings to get it, relatively close to what we thought would come to what would be voted on at referendum.
Now we're talking about just strictly the town side. We're not talking about the education budget whatsoever.
It is everything. It's town. It's general government. It's debt service. It's capital. It's Board of Education. It's the full budget, what you would normally see when you were going to go to referendum. So we did work on that to try to get it somewhere closer to where we thought maybe it would land when it went there. Obviously, now you're commenting on something that's a little more accurate, a little more truer to what you will see. And then following tonight's meeting, we'll meet again on Thursday, on the 2nd of May. And that will be where we will craft a final budget to then get forwarded to the selectmen to have town meeting and then go to referendum. So just a little bit of difference.
So this is really just town meeting 1 of 2.
Public hearing, public comment, then town meeting where they actually will present what will then go to referendum. Yes.
So what's the difference really between public hearing and town meeting?
So public hearing is where the public has the opportunity to comment
town meeting, they do not.
On what is important to us, what's not important. There can be discussion, but the taxpayers then vote to send that to referendum. I think the taxpayers vote to send that to referendum. Oh, I don't know.
I think it's the Board of Selectmen, is it not?
Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, sorry. Board of Selectmen. Yeah.
So it's imperative for tonight's meeting that people show up and voice their opinion, what they would like to see, what they don't want to see, and that kind of conversation, so that you guys have an understanding what the public's looking for.
It is.
So,
I mean, I'm going to be honest with you at the same time. There's a balance there because we also recognize that not everybody shows up to public hearing,
or the poll.
So it's
so it turns into a best guess.
So it's tough. It's always a best guess. But if you don't have this is our opportunity to kind of try to put your finger on the pulse and kind of gauge, what's important to people, what's not important to people. In years past, I think in the little over a decade or so that I've been on the board, I think there's only been maybe one public hearing, maybe two, where there's actually been a decent turnout and there's been public comment. Typically, we go to this. You've got your town officials and employees that show up. You've got your board of ed,
Right.
school district employees and officials that show up. They make some comment, and we're out of there within 20 minutes. Not a very good representation of what's important to the townspeople. So this is their opportunity to come out and tell us what they think.
So the streaming at the school,
Mhm.
and you're still working with the school, I take it, to try and get that resolved. I think that people can respond or ask questions or something.
It's going to be strictly streamed. It's going to be strictly streamed. If you're not at a live meeting,
Yep.
I'm not taking.
So that's the
I'm not
board's
doing a-
discretion.
Right.
Is it the board's discretion whether or not to take?
I look at it this way, and until
questions that
somebody
way?
tells me that I legally have to change what it is that I'm doing,
Yeah.
I look at it this way. Our meetings are live. They're in-person meetings. The streaming is a courtesy to inform the general public at large of what's going on.
So I just wanted to clarify
because it's hard to
Right.
how do you moderate something like that?
Yeah.
There are
How do you watch? Do you
controls,
watch
so
a baseball
that's-
game and all of a sudden?
so that would be if all of a sudden
Yeah.
you had the ability to have 10,000 people that were watching this meeting, or 5,000 people, or 500 people.
So you got a
How
bunch
do
of
you-
questions
7
sitting
people.
in the queue there that you're going to try and answer, but I can understand. But I wanted to clarify that so that people don't understand, or that stay at home and watch it will not have the opportunity to ask questions and have them answered.
Correct.
If you want that to happen, you need to show up at the meeting tonight
Correct.
in person.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Kathy wants to know: will the budgets be presented before public comment tonight? And I think we have to again reiterate: it's the town side only.
No, it's
the
everything. It's
education
everything.
budget. Okay.
This is the 100% complete
All right.
budget package.
That's why you said bring dinner tonight. No.
Pack a lunch.
Pack a lunch.
So it is available on the town website. I know that the school's budget is available on their website, and I know that traditionally or historically, the finance director has always brought packets of what the budget looks like to the meeting for anybody that wants to grab a packet as well. So I'm going to surmise that it's going to be, the same as what it has been.
Okay. All right. So you have a bunch of information.
So
that you want to go ahead
I mean,
and-
just a few things, and I can kind of give you an overview. I guess the first thing I wanted to just talk about, and I got to throw my glasses on so I can see what I've written.
Sorry, the camera's only on you right now, anyways.
Great. Hello, Kitty.
So I can make faces. I can make faces at him the whole time.
Yeah, right.
So
Nobody can see it.
So the first thing I want to just kind of briefly talk about is the $600,000 albatross around our neck. There seems to be a lot of differing of opinions. There seems to be a lot of, and I'm going to say, misinformation out there with regard to what it's all about. Does it have to be paid back? Doesn't it have to be paid back? We borrowed it from ourselves. So my wise ass kind of short answer is no, we don't have to pay it back.
Yeah.
We don't. Because we didn't really borrow it.
You just took it from yourself.
So
You just took it from another fund, right?
it's not like we really borrowed that money. So it's not like, okay, you've got a loan now that you've got to pay back. What we had is we had a revenue shortfall last year, and we had to figure out a way to plug that hole in a revenue shortfall. So the best way that I can kind of walk it through is this. Accounting 101, your revenues always have to equal your expenses. If your expenses go up, your revenue has to go up, and it has to be a matching number because you have to have the revenues to be able to pay for the expenses. So last year, and we'll just use kind of easy math. Last year, the overall budget, well, let me back up. How do we get revenues? We get a lion's share of our revenues. Well, maybe not a lion's share, but we get a substantial amount of our revenues from state aid, state funding. That's a continuous number, may change, may go up or down a little bit, but that's a continuous revenue stream that we count on every year. Other revenue streams would be fees that are collected, building department, town clerk,
Permits.
the school, the tuition that they get. Those are revenues, and there's enough historical data, and they where we kind of know what those numbers are. We can count on those. So the remaining, there may be a couple little other streams here and there that come in. But the balance of that is now done through taxation, setting the mill rate, taxing businesses, taxing residents. So as your revenues go up, as your expenses go up in a budget, we said that your revenues have to match it. Well, if we're only getting a certain number for state aid and a certain number in fees, how do we bridge that gap? We've got to raise taxes. We've got to increase the mill rate. So last year, we'll use just some easy math, and we'll say that the budget was $40 million. We set a mill rate that only covered $39.4 million. It was $600,000 short.
Right.
So we said, whoa, we've got a revenue shortfall of $600,000. The typical choice is to say, we're going to increase the mill rate by, 2/3 of a mill, we'll say, to generate that $600,000. Right. Done. Yeah. We didn't do that. What was done was money was taken out of the town undesignated fund to plug that revenue gap. So what happens is, moving forward into this year, you're not paying yourself back. We've got a revenue shortfall of $600,000 that we still need to make up because we used other monies. We didn't use a continuous source of funding,
is that monies. Somewhat called at times the rainy day fund?
It can be the rainy day fund, can be called the surplus fund.
General fund.
I've heard it as the rainy day fund for years.
That fund by policy is and Board of Finance just revamped it. It's between 12 and 19%. The auditors, when they come in, they say, okay, look, your percentage should be within these parameters here to be acceptable. Healthy fund balances affect things like your bond rating, your financial health, even whether or not you qualify for certain monies from the feds or from the state. But that's designed for things like we had a few years ago where the state started screwing around with our monies, and we had to live off of surplus for, 3 or 4 months, I believe it was, to continue to operate, and until they finally, got things straightened out, and they gave us our money and they balanced their budget. So moving into this year, we already have a revenue shortfall of $600,000 because we used a temporary source of a revenue stream, basically, right, to fund that gap. We didn't fill it with a mill rate because the mill rate always stays the same. So, so moving into this year, boom, we're hit with 600,000. It doesn't go away. You've got to account for that money. It doesn't go away because there's that shortfall. Sure. So
you're saying that shortfall carried over from last year into this year. So we're still going to have a $600,000 shortfall.
We have
this year
that we need to address through increasing the mill rate. That's the only way that you're going to get rid of that shortfall is to increase the mill rate to account for that $600,000 because you need a permanent revenue stream. B, your revenues have to increase and expenses have to remain static so that you can offset it. And it's not like, hey, our revenues, and it's not, and I guess I should probably point out that that's moving into this year. Don't confuse that with the fact of the current year that we're in. We got a $600,000 shortfall. Mm-hmm. Well, let's just say expenses came in $200,000 less than what everybody budgeted. Between what the school spent and what the town spent, they came in $200,000 less. So now you say, great, we only have to use $400,000 of that money. School comes in and says, hey, we made you $200,000 more in tuition. Great, now we only need to use $200,000 of that money to pay the bills based on this one. But that's just because of where things landed. You
Yep.
still come into this year with a $600,000 hole that you've got to bridge. So yeah, to your point though, Wayne, you're right. If our expenses remained flat, and let's just say that the grand list went up by X amount of dollars,
Yeah.
so it increased by by that, then you're right. Then that would be a situation where you wouldn't have to adjust the mill rate because you'd be able to have that permanent revenue stream through an alternative means. Otherwise, you do have to. You got to raise taxes to plug it. That's why there were a few of us on the board that were so adamant about doing that last year, because it creates a huge fiscal cliff that the following year you have to deal with one way or another. You can't ignore it. The books have to balance.
Okay.
Just want to. There's a question on the board, and I think you've already addressed this.
Okay.
Can residents email questions if they can't attend in person? If so, what's the email address? I think. So, go ahead. I'm just gonna.
I have,
Kathy,
typically, so it's interesting because typically public comment is public comment. Public comment, it is not question and answer. It's not called public question and answer. Hey, I want to come with my book of questions and this, that, the other. This is the opportunity for the budget gets presented, and you have the ability to comment on certain line items.
So, for example,
we probably will not spend a lot of time this evening answering a lot of questions from the podium, because that's not what the design of this is. Not to say that we won't answer any, but it's really not a public question and answer period. It's a public hearing for comment.
Right.
So, for example, like the Ryan Auburn Youth Services issue with the assistant and stuff, people can bring up. So I disagree with removing or cutting the assistant to part-time. I would like to see him go to full-time.
Yep.
And
Like to see
you
him
say,
stay
okay,
at
and
full-time.
you can say, okay, we understand.
Right.
And then that's
Wayne,
the end of that.
you want him to stay at full time.
Yeah, stay at
Okay.
full-time.
All right.
Yes. Yeah. So what's the options? So, and I talked to Robin, and I'll give you kudos because you went to his meeting last week and you talked to him about his options. So it was good to hear that, because Ryan was on last week, that, you were willing to work with him on that issue and understand where he was, challenged with his programs going forward.
Mm-hmm.
So that was good that you got involved with that. I had sent him an email the next day. I said, so they want to, keep your van and cut your assistant. I think you should be keeping the assistant and then cutting the van out another year or something like that. So there's options there for him to be successful. So that's the kind of thing people are going to step up, say, I would like to see this, yada, yada, yada. And then you guys make notes, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
And Kathy, I'm getting Kathy's not going to be able to come tonight. So her next question is, can comments and opinions be emailed to be read as public record?
I'm going to give you an honest answer, because I won't say anything that I don't know the answer to, and I'm not infallible.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe, and that's not a wise ass. Comment.
In other words, it could happen.
We've received emails in the past from people that say, "Hey, I can't be at the meeting. I can't be at the meeting," and they'll go out. Sometimes they'll come to me, and I'll send them out to the board. Sometimes they'll come in Eric, he'll send them out to the board. But I can't think of a time in the past where we have ever read those into the meeting minutes. We'd receive them. We will, typically refer to those or talk about those at a subsequent, meeting, but they don't get read into the minutes. It's just we'll go ahead and we'll look at them just like we're listening to what people say.
So Victoria says an answer. She's answering Kathy's question, saying people can request that their correspondence be read into public record per the state. Now, is that strictly for regular meetings? This is not a regular meeting.
Yeah,
that's something to look into.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
I don't know. I mean, quite honestly, I don't know.
See, now everybody's asking for the email, and it's
Yeah.
like it's not even a guarantee.
Right.
The bottom line is they want you to show up. That's what they want you to do.
If there's something, and if you can't, you can't. But if there's something that important to you that you want to bring to the Board of Finance's attention,
Okay,
you show up.
Yeah, I mean,
So
we've received an email or we received, I think, 2 emails at this point right now.
should they be directed to Eric Christensen?
That's probably the easiest. That's probably the easiest way. That's how both of them have. Well, actually, one got sent to me, and I forwarded it to the rest of the board.
Right.
And then another one got sent to Eric, and then he forwarded it to the rest of the board as well.
So, finance director at Griswold-ct.org. That's Eric's email. Yeah.
It is. Okay.
yeah, you can find it on the website.
Yeah.
Larry says should be able to Zoom into this meeting.
I don't know. I don't know what they're working on. I know they're trying to utilize the system in the school to do the streaming.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Scott's working and Eric's working with the school on. But
I mean, we used Zoom when we held our meetings during COVID.
Yeah.
And that worked well for us. We still had to, mute everybody else. And if it was a special meeting, you didn't have the ability to talk. If it was public comment, then we could, you could raise your hand and we would, unmute you. I just don't know, realistically, if you had, I don't know, let's just say you had 150 people in this meeting.
Yeah.
Who's moderating the website, as far as that goes? Like I said, we're going to stream it, and my opinion at this point, and I'm somebody, well, I don't say somebody because anybody can type in and say you're wrong, but when I get some sort of a, thing from the town, then, Eric or Tina say, hey, we heard back and the town attorney says, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. Okay, then I'll do that. Right now, we're going to stream as a courtesy, not as a participation method.
Okay, and I think the general consensus is that it's just a thing now,
right?
And it should happen. And I agree, it probably should happen. But being in that business myself, I think you can only do what you can do,
right?
And this is a very unpopular opinion, but it's like, who's paying for it?
Right.
Who's paying for it? Is this, are you going to have to bring somebody in and spend $500, or whatever?
Sure.
Or are they just going to hook up an owl and hope for the best?
Right.
so they're trying not to use the owl because the owl's going to be very difficult to use in that room. So they're trying to work with the school to utilize
whatever
the
they
streaming
use,
service
whatever they're using to broadcast their meetings when they have them. The goal is to utilize that system. And I think that they were just working together to get it broadcast to the town Facebook or YouTube page or whatever that is.
So it's not a guarantee, but it might happen.
Yeah, it sounds to me like more likely than not it is going to happen.
Well, no, that's great. That's great, but
yeah.
But I think we're getting way off the path.
We are
of what this is supposed to be this morning.
Right.
So, if you want to send a question, I don't think it. I don't know the policy, so I'm not going to quote policy. Finance director at griswold-ct.org. Finance director at griswold-ct.org. You want to ask a question this morning? We're going to no more streaming questions. I think we beat that into the ground. Tune into their Facebook page. Hopefully it's there.
Yeah, so I think the message is here is if you're going to send an email to the finance director, according to after the meeting tonight, Scott said in 2 days, Thursday night, they're going to work on the final budget to send it to the Board of Selectmen to go to referendum. Was it June 4th is the current estimated date?
Yeah, that sounds right. Somewhere in that.
So it's got to be fairly quick.
All right, so we went off on the some dirt road somewhere.
Yes.
But let's recenter again, and going to give it over to you once again, Scott.
So where are we now? We currently sit at, based on I want to reiterate, proposed draft budget. That's the other thing that's out there, because we changed the format this year, and I think people are used to the old format. People are automatically assuming that, hey, they've made these cuts. This is the budget we have to deal with now. We've got to live with. And I said, it's not accurate.
We've been saying on here
it's
been
proposed draft budget. Absolutely. So all those that are trying to, take it the other way, that's not accurate. Currently, we sit at a 1.5 mil increase.
As a town, or
as a town, for the complete budget. So initially, and I guess it's probably important to know that when we came into the budget cycle, we had all of the budgets that were presented to us, the school budget, the town budget, the capital budget. Right out of the gate, we sat at a 1.1 mil increase just to start. That's without even looking at what the budgets were. And that's because we had the $600,000 that revenue shortfall now that we had to make up for. And there was an increase in long-term debt due to us now. We're now paying for the note for the multi-purpose field for the bond. So those two items alone were 1.1 mil increase. If we made no cuts to the budgets as they were presented to us, we would have landed at a 2.43 mil increase. What does that mean? If your house is assessed at $250,000, your taxes would have gone up $608 a year at 2.43 mils. That doesn't include your vehicles. Your vehicles are calculated, completely different. Yeah. So we did some work, pared down what we could. And and as I mentioned at that meeting, I had some thoughts and I had some ideas. I figured that this is a great opportunity to give my opinion, because as chair, I don't give my opinion that often, because I don't want to do anything to unduly influence anybody else on the board. That's not my role. But budget time is so critically important that I think it's important to kind of know where everybody sits on the board. And I think it's important that the public kind of know what your thought process is and why. And I did say at that meeting, I said, look, this is a tough budget year. Right out of the gate, we're at 1.1 mils. That's before we start to consider the budget. So any cuts that we make, no matter where they are, they're going to be extremely unfavorable. And I said, look, try not to take it personally, because it's not personal. It's just, you got to kind of just go through this kind of black and white approach and say, here's what I'm thinking. Doesn't mean that you're right. It just happens to be what your thought process is. We're currently at a 1.5 mil increase that does include this year. The proposal is to pull $150,000 out of surplus to get to that number. My opinion alone is I don't know if that's the right approach by the time we finalize a budget to go to selectmen for town meeting and referendum, because that puts us in another fiscal cliff that we've got to deal with next year at 150. We're sitting at a 1.5 mil increase right now. Historically, the higher end of the mil increases we've ever have been maybe 0.65, 0.65. So is the public going to recognize that this is needed and we need to do that? I don't know. You won't know until whoever, the 6 people that come to the polls to vote, unfortunately. And that was, probably not called for a sarcastic comment, but I mean, that's accurate. I mean, we have such low voter turnout, and this is such critical importance.
You guys in Layton put a lot of work into this.
This impacts everybody in town. And this is the one time a year, if you're going to come out and you're going to vote at budget time, for crying out loud, because it impacts you and it impacts your neighbor. It impacts everybody in town. Programming, what you receive for services, don't receive for services. get out and vote. So now I lost my train of thought. So, 1.5 million. I'm not so certain that
1.5 mil.
1.5. I'm sorry, $150,000. There's somebody
Okay.
1.5.
Yeah.
So 1.5 mil increase, 150,000 coming out of surplus. That's proposed. I don't know if that's really a good idea right now. I certainly don't. I certainly think that if we were going to ever consider taking any money out of surplus to have to balance this budget to get it to pass, that should be what I would call the nuclear option. That, you know what, we've had a referendum, it failed. We went back, we worked on it again. We had another referendum, it failed. Now we're into the third one here. And okay, now we're going to have desperate times call for desperate measures. Maybe we're going to have to pull a little bit of money out to offset that to get it to the point where it will pass. I think that's a third time go around. Once again, that's my philosophy. My philosophy is that you craft a budget that you truly believe is a good balance between what can be afforded and what can be needed. And people are going to jump on me and say, well, I can't afford a $1.5 million tax increase. Taxes haven't gone up in 2 years. So I feel really bad. I don't like a $1.5 million increase either. I don't like paying taxes. I don't like my taxes going up. I don't like seeing less money in my paycheck. I hate it. I got on this board because I thought I was going to be able to make a difference in that sense. You quickly find that the machine kind of runs, and you do your best to mitigate the situation. You can't cure the situation. I mean, we all know
There's a lot of
we've beat
mitigation,
it up.
isn't there?
We've beat it up. I mean, commercial
Right.
development is really the key, but
That's it. Yep.
that's a conversation for probably 5 years from now when we get to that point where we start seeing that revenue. So right now, I look at it and I say, that's probably where we.
And of course, the
You know,
last 2
where we need to
years,
be.
nothing has stayed the same as far as wages, contracts, materials, and all that skyrocketed.
No,
So
everything has
Right.
gone
you're
up.
trying to
Correct.
catch up with all that.
Correct.
So
Correct. So, when you think about it, we started out at a 1.1 mil increase out of the gate. We're at a 1.5 now. I think if we didn't use the 150,000, that would put us at strict guess off the top of my head, I'm going to say probably a 1.68-ish. We'll just say 1.7 just for easy math. So 0.2 mils. I don't know. I don't have the easy answer. This is not an easy situation.
So when I was at the meeting the other night, you had one half of the board pushing for a 1.25 mil increase, which really isn't a lot when you're already starting at 1.1.
Right.
Right. And then the other half of the board was sitting there saying, I think realistically it's 1.75 mil increase with everything else and not borrowing the 150, and then maybe adding a few other things, smaller items to accommodate the town and school needs. So it's a really, so they compromised with a 1.5. And I agree with you that I don't think we should be continuing the bad habit of taking the money out, and we ought to just pay the piper now, and then going forward, see what we need to do to maintain the budgets.
Yep. And my opinion was I thought that we should land somewhere around a 1.7 or 1.75 increase, and that was really based, like I said, just strictly in black and white, historical context terms of saying, okay, typically we're between 0.5, 0.6 mil increase when we have those increases. We hadn't had a real increase in 2 years. So if you take a 1.1 mil increase and we're at, say 1.75, where does that put us? It puts us at 0.65 mils,
For 3
or
years.
0.6 mils.
Yeah.
So a 0.6 mil increase is typically
Over
what
3
we would
years,
see as
yeah.
a normal budget increase if you don't count the other two. So that was kind of, my thought process of landing at a 1.7 mil. That would put us at about a 0.6 mil increase, which is normal, I guess I'd have to say.
So again, just because I want to put this on the ticker here, if at 1.5,
Yep.
$250,000 house valued at would raise your taxes by.
So at 1.5, a house assessed at $250,000 is an increase of $375.
for the year.
for the year.
And
And I have it assessed at 200 and 100 or 152 if you wanted those numbers.
okay, what was the next one?
Assessed at 200,000 is $300.
Okay.
And assessed at 150,000 is $225.
Okay.
So
I just wanted to put that on the ticker so that way people can see it.
So, in just to, I mean, in terms of what that means, we talk about that 1.5 mill rate where we are right now. Point 0.41 of that increase is general government. 0.44 of that increase is debt service. So general government, that 0.41 includes capital as well. So it's general government operating and capital. The debt service portion is 0.44 out of that. And then the education budget is 0.65 out of that. That's how
0.65?
0.65. That would be the increase based on.
Increase for the school?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I thought it was.
Don't forget,
less.
we're adding. It's 0.65.
Because I thought they lowered it after your 385,000 went down to like 0.4 something, or 4 point something.
Well,
What did you say it was?
0.65.
0.65.
Yeah. This came. This came from.
Maybe I got the numbers.
Yeah.
I might have the numbers confused, but I know they lowered it. It was, it's a percent increase.
Correct. Might be the percent increase that you're thinking about.
Yep. Okay.
Is it a possibility to put the too high, too low question back on the ballot? As far as the town
That's
budgets.
you know what? That's a really good question, and I'm going to need to find out. Let me just write that down in my notes.
Yeah, that way it gives you some kind of idea what people are thinking.
Yeah. The question reads, can we get the too high / too low question back on the ballot for both the town and education budgets?
So
Erica.
So I don't remember what the nuances were with that. And we had that on one of the referendums, and I want to say it was probably the year that we had to go to like 3 or 4 referendums in order to get the budget passed. There were some nuances, and it had to do with either how many words or how many lines you could have as part of the ballot. And I don't remember now what the issue was, but it wasn't like you could just kind of word whatever you wanted, however you wanted, and put all this extra stuff. There had to meet certain parameters. So I will, I'll find that out, because that would be handy, I think. Especially, this year with everything that
then you would ask it, is it too high for the school, too low, too high for the town, or too low? That way you know which budget, or maybe they won't like either, or maybe they'll like both. Who knows?
Right. Because I think you can only ask a yes/no question, and I think that's what it is. It's not like, circle the bubble for too high, circle the bubble for too low kind of a deal.
Yeah. So you believe this budget's too high? They say yes or no, and they'll tell you. Okay.
Yeah. So we might have been limited to the number of questions, additional questions that could appear in the ballot or something. There was something with that. I'll find out.
I've seen 2.
Yeah, and I think that would have made 4 questions. Because
Yeah. Kathy says the past several years, low and 0 mill increases did not set us up for success.
100% correct.
No one wants tax increases, but they're absolutely necessary every year to invest in Griswold's future to attract home buyers and business.
So, we just talked about if we'd have had a 0.6 mil increase the last 2 years, we would be probably at 0.6 or 7 mill increase now, right? And we're on there. That's what you said. If we'd done that, we'd be looking at an average mill increase. But even then, the 1.1 mil start out, and then we're going up 0.4 mil. That's not really.
Yeah.
That's not a lot.
It's kind of like that old commercial. You can pay me now or you can pay me later.
Yes.
It's really what this has kind of turned out to be.
And the other thing on
Scenario.
top of that, the inflation rate in the last 3 years has skyrocketed, really,
Yeah.
with everything. Pay, materials,
Well,
already talked about that.
The economy hasn't gotten better.
No.
And, so 1 year later, we're in kind of a worse situation now to have to worry about paying that back. So maybe here's the other thing we can talk about for a minute. Let's talk about surplus fund. We kind of talked about that, earlier. We by policy we're 12 to 19. I think in the past we were 8.5 to 17. It just recently changed. Our policy
12
just
or
recently
10?
changed.
I thought it went to 10.
Maybe it's 10. Maybe I wanted 12, but we got settled on 10.
And some people wanted 20 at the top end.
So I think it might be 10 to 9. Maybe it's 10 to 19.
So you know why it's the minimum is what the minimum is based on? Because I was asking these questions because I was probably one of the ones asking about the 600,000, especially on the show,
Yep.
and trying to understand because some people are told it's not a payback, it's a revenue shortfall, which I'm starting to get sunk into my thick skull here, how this is supposed to work out. But we got a minimum 10%. It was explained to me that we need that money in the surplus to be able to operate the town, the school, in case, like you said, the state has issues or we don't have any funds coming in. There's an emergency situation.
Yep.
So that seems to me, in my mind, that minimum value of 10% would be that 3 to 4 months of money to run the town and the school, bare bones.
Correct.
And then the 19%, I guess you had to have an upper limit because then you're showing you're not overtaxing the residents, I guess.
I don't know where the auditors get their values. And this goes back to when I was educated on this particular thing. This goes back probably 3 auditors ago and 8 or 10 years ago. And so I don't know what their kind of rubric is and how they come up with the swag on your low number and your high number, but it is just that it's this variable that they have in there so that you are able to continue to operate as a municipality, school, and general government side in the event that there was some sort of a revenue shortfall, stoppage, or something catastrophic that happened that now we needed. I mean, we've also used that money for things where these projects, instead of having to put it out to bond right away and do bond anticipation notes and start paying interest on that, prematurely, we've had a healthy enough surplus where we were able to utilize the money out of surplus, pay those bills, and then when the project was at completion or near completion, then get the bond and then start making your payments. So it has provided some leverage for us to realize some savings on that side, as well. The swag number, I think, is just so that I don't think that they've got their thumb on you. Hey, you didn't hit this one particular number. There's you're getting kind of on the low side. You could take a couple of dings for being there. Look, you're looking at bonding companies, financial institutions. You're looking at the auditors. They want to see more money. Obviously, they're more comfortable when you're at the higher side because that provides you with some more financial stability. And I guess where people say, "Oh, it's too high." There's this. There's that. We should really kind of look at it and say it's in a large part of, I think, number one. We've got a great finance director. He does a terrific job. He's extremely knowledgeable. We've got a very, very healthy fund balance. That fund balance we've been fortunate over the last few years. It's been to the high side. Those two things in the financial health of this community is responsible for us receiving the ultra low bond interest rates that we've gotten recently for these projects. I think that and I don't want to misspeak, but I want to say that when we just wrapped up the bond for the multipurpose field, financial health, where obviously surplus is a huge component of that, and the financial health of the town overall. Audits and right down the line, but certainly surplus is a huge component of that. That the bonding agent, I want to say, had a conversation with, it might have been the finance director and the first selectman, that you guys received a bond rating that is almost like you guys, towns of Greenwich would receive, because we have that amount of financial health and stability. And I know that sounds like a stupid thing to say, and it's false, but that's accurate. He did mention that at one of those meetings that the bond council said, look, no, you guys are in such financial strength that even with the economy the way that it is, and this and that, the other, that we're seeing these, western sides of the state and, those coastal towns, that the affluent communities, that you guys are, we don't have that kind of money, but we have that kind of credit, I guess, from financial stability.
Which is something, because I was going to ask you, is that one of the more important things, in a town's, history or whatever, is their financial stability compared to anything else? Because that pretty much is what makes the monster run.
I think it all intertwines, absolutely.
Yeah. But here's
I want to before
Go
we
ahead.
begin, I'm going to take a quick break and
Okay.
give you a chance to to go ahead and catch your breath for a minute. How much time do you have? Because this is a 5-hour show if we want it to be.
I can probably give you another 15 minutes or half hour if you want.
Yep, that's fine. I mean, I'm okay. I'm fine with it, because I think this is really important. Or whatever.
I got a lot of things to do today, Mike.
Well, I can hang out and talk to him. Oh yeah, Mr. Retired. I'll just go ahead. Let's see. A couple of people have commented about basically thank you for being so transparent, meaning you in particular, and that would be Kathy said that, and Cindy Martin. So we're going to take a quick break and let Mr. Davis get a little breath in, and we'll be back in a minute right here on SNSN.
City Savings Bank's commitment to helping local businesses fuel growth was recognized by the Small Business Administration and readers of the Commercial Record. We invite you to put our winning commercial lending team to work for your business. Because when local businesses succeed, we all win. To learn more, visit jcsbank.com. Jewett City Savings Bank. Member FDIC. Equal housing lender.
You buy better at Burns, you buy better. New year, same problem. These insurance prices always seem to be on the rise. Is it simply the company you're with, or is there more you can be doing to manage your insurance cost? Call the Burns Agency today and let our qualified staff walk you through coverage options, eligible discounts, and other cost savings. You can reach us at burnsagency.com, by phone, or better yet, stop by our convenient locations in Norwich and Dayville. The Burns Agency, proudly serving Eastern Connecticut since 1932.
Why are we getting killed like this?
Kyle's not here. Got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah, 0 tolerance. He's out for the season.
Harsh.
Hey, he knew not to drink. We've made that clear to all of our kids, right?
No, not really.
Bill, if we don't tell them what we expect and why they shouldn't drink, how are they going to know?
Talk. They hear you. For more information, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
All right, we're back. What was that snarky little question there, Wayne, that you just had?
How many people are actually watching this show right now to get all this information that Scott's putting out?
Right now, depending on what platform you're on, about 40.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
It's more than usual.
But it isn't.
It isn't?
It isn't, no. When you're over here and you see a number of like 12, that's one platform.
Okay. All right.
So no. No, it's...
Well, I'm not a geek like you. You can look at all those things.
I'm not a geek either. I'm just familiar with how this works.
Yep.
The other thing is that people watch it throughout the day.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I know a lot of people that have told me personally is that, I can't catch it in the morning.
Right.
Especially when we have someone like Scott on where it is important, and they'll go ahead and they'll
right.
and then they can zip through it or get to the points, that they want to. Also want to, we all of the folks that we went ahead and just played commercials for, these are the folks that make it possible to us to have Scott Davis and other people from the town on to give you the information that you want / need. Others, of course, are Highway Campers, family owned since 1967. On Route 12 in Plainfield. Of course, we just talked about Griswold Dental Associates. Eastern Connecticut Savings Bank, honest banking, real people. They've got branches everywhere. Eastern Connecticut Savings Bank. Capital Property Group, which is an association management team, real estate management. You can buy and sell real estate through. They're actually in this same building here at 70 Main Street here in Jewett City. Find them on the Facebook or on the web. Capital Property Group LLC. P7 Construction, also someone from this building here. They will do new roofs, old roofs, anything you can think of for your home. P7 Construction LLC. Uncle Cranky's, Main Street, Jewett City. We have lots of restaurants. Thank God. Dean's Corner Diner on Main Street, also in Jewett City, and Rubino's Full Circle over on Route 138. Those burgers are delicious over there. Let's see if we can get rid of that. Doesn't matter anymore. TNT Tumblers and Teas. Never mind.
See Mike's smiling face.
And Plainfield Family Chiropractic. Go visit. You went and visited Dr. Jenny.
Yep, and I keep lifting things off my deck and moving things around. I have to see her again.
Anyway, all right. So thank you to each and every one of our supporters, because they're the ones that actually do that. If you have a small business that you want to go ahead and help support what we do here, DM me, and we can talk about it. It's not as expensive as you might think. Kathy says she also shared this to Griswold now. What? Griswold discuss? What?
Pushing your buttons now.
My
Mike.
God. Gonna make Carl's phone melt.
Well, I'm wondering if Kathy's going to show up at a hearing tonight on time. That's what I want to know.
All right. So we've been granted a few extra minutes with Scott Davis here this morning because Scott has a real life and needs to get to work as well. So I'll let you pick the subject where you want to go with this.
I don't know. I mean, I guess the only other thing we were talking about, the surplus, general fund. What happens when we get to the higher end or we exceed that upper limit? What we are trying to do as a board, what we did last year is we'll take some of that money and we'll appropriate extra money into capital. Mm-hmm. People say, well, isn't that kind of the same thing when you have a revenue shortfall and you're taking money out of that and you're plugging the revenue shortfall? No, it's not. Revenue shortfall means you don't have enough money to pay your bills, so we've got to take money out and we've got to plug that hole with this money. When we deal with an overage or we're hitting those higher limits, and everybody's fairly comfortable that we're not going to need to lean on that for something else, we can take a portion of that money and we can put it into capital. They can check off a couple of other boxes on maybe equipment that they were looking to purchase over a 10-year period of, collecting money. Now we can buy it in 1 year instead of doing, 5 annual, installment, type things, or put in the roads, which I think everybody's number one, complain or bitch about is, oh my God, the roads are horrible. We need to spend more money on roads. They've done 2 road studies. Road studies say we need to spend X amount of money on roads. And every year we're, one half of what that number is supposed to be just to maintain a status quo. So
I think the people on Latham Drive, they're ready to secede from the nation.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So, matter of fact, I was at one of the board of selectmen meeting on the, back in the fall, that was brought up about Latham Drive.
Right.
And that was supposed to be done. And then Todd explained because the material had doubled like in a couple years, so they could only do half the roads that they were able to do with the same amount of money. So, she understood that, so it's a challenge. And
what do you say about that? We know it's a challenge and stuff like that, but what do you say to people say, well, I need my road done? Why isn't this in the budget?
Because they don't want to pay the money. At the end of the
Thank you.
day,
Yeah.
everybody wants something.
Sure.
But
Absolutely.
nobody wants to.
I want something.
But nobody
too,
wants
right.
to pay for it. And I hate to sound like a hater. I hate to sound cliche, but nothing in life is free.
Right.
And God, that sounds
Well,
that's not cliche.
That depends
Holy
on who
shit.
you're talking to.
Oh my God, But I mean, somebody's paying for it somewhere. If it's free, might be free for you, but it isn't free for me.
right,
So
exactly.
at the end of the day, if I want services, hey, I'd love to be able to have garbage pickup for free. I'd love to be able to not have to pay maybe for your normal stuff at the transfer station, or maybe have the transfer station open up every weekend. That'd be fantastic. At the end
That
of the
would
day,
be fantastic.
that costs money though, and we're not an affluent community, so you try to balance the two against each other and try to figure out what the best happy medium is, unfortunately. And that's why I said, with the surplus, we try to dump it into capital now every opportunity that we can when we get to that higher limit, because then they could check off a few more boxes. And how do we get to that higher limit? Contrary to popular belief, no one pays a surcharge on their taxes to overfund the surplus fund, the general fund. That doesn't happen. There is no extra little rider on your tax bill. How that happens is, I used kind of that example before. Our expenses are $40 million. Well, guess what? The expenses came in at $30,900,000. So $30,900,000. So that extra money, because you didn't spend it, it never came out of the budget. Your surplus went up. The school's another one. Hey, we're budgeting $3 million for tuition. Hey, we hit $3.2 million. We wouldn't have figured we did, but we did. Well, since the $3 million what was budgeted as revenues, that extra $200,000 goes into surplus. And there are some other ways that we're able to recognize some gains there too, but never is it on the backs of the taxpayers. Never do we go ahead and set a mill rate and say, I think we can make a couple of dollars off of this when we set this mill rate, because I really don't think that's where it's going to be. We do our best educated guess to try to get that number exactly where it is supposed to be. You never overstate your revenues and you never understate your expenses.
Well, that's the same that I saw during all the presentations from all the departments. There's some departments that can only estimate and look in the past what they need to operate, and then they give you that number. And sometimes it might be a little over or might be a little under. So you might get some money returned back to you because they didn't utilize all the funds that was given to them.
Right.
So, that makes me think of a question too, like what you were talking about, and you just kind of solidified what I wanted to ask. So let's say, the school gets 3, and don't jump in on this because you're going to get shit for it. So,
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Let's say the school, budget's $3 million. So that's what you put in there, right? And an extra $200,000 comes in, goes towards the general fund. So instead of doing that, why can't they take that $200,000 and help buy that bond down for the field? You see what I'm saying?
Make an extra principal payment
exactly.
or whatever.
Is it not smart? Is it not smart to make on your mortgage on your home a payment every 2 weeks instead of once a month? Because you get that extra payment every year, and that you can greatly decrease the interest that you're paying.
That's not a bad question. It depends, I guess, on what the situation is, on whether or not it makes sense. Sometimes those bonds are the bonds. You can't pay them down early. Think about it in terms of lending. If I'm buying municipal bonds, I'm buying it at a guaranteed term, a guaranteed rate.
Yep.
So it's not necessarily the same as, hey, you're going to pay your car loan off early, because there are people that are owed a lot of money based on those packages. That's basically how it gets financed. It gets financed from people that are buying municipal bonds. So
instead of buying it down, can we pay it off early? If let's say we had you get a payoff and say, okay, boom. I mean, I understand it doesn't work the same as a car loan or your mortgage or anything like that. Can you do that? You could take the $200,000, and next year there's another $100,000. Put that in there, and by the time it's done,
I think it
you've
depends.
got to pay.
I think it depends on what the terms of that note happen to be.
All right, which makes sense.
Yeah,
Which
because
makes
sometimes
sense,
those are oftentimes, especially when you're dealing with government bonds like that,
they're low interest.
It's an obligation, but the obligation is we make the payments, but somebody's receiving the benefits from giving you that money. So you have to make sure that they're not shorted, so it's not kind of as cut and dry as that.
Otherwise, you might not get another bond from them.
True. No,
you
got to play the game. This is I'm sorry.
Hello,
Scott.
Kitty.
Hello, Kitty. If you don't know what we're talking about, look at Scott Davis's picture on Facebook. There's always one I get. Every year he's waiting for it. This is not that hard. Myself personally, this has got nothing to do with this here. I'm a big believer that Ryan Aubin should have a second full-time. Should have a full-time. Matter of fact, I think he should have two. Because I think that if you have those folks, giving them a chance to really spread their wings, what would happen with summer camp if that was to happen? What kind of programs could be offered? I hear it all the time. Well, there's nothing going on. There's nothing that, what can I do with my kids? Well, I feel that they're really trying to make headway, but you need that. You need people to do so. You can only split 20 Ryan Aubins, and we all know Ryan is godlike in town.
It's a really small slice when it's split 20 ways.
I know. What difference would it really make in the budget if the Board of Finance, Gail, listen to me, if the Board of Finance just left that alone, as opposed to, it can't be huge. It can't be huge. We're talking about, okay, this is the third year, 2 years without any kind of an increase. We knew this year we were going to bite the bullet. This was not a surprise. If it was a surprise, then your head is in the sand. Yeah. Bottom line.
Right.
But really, in the grand scheme of things, leaving that full-time position alone, how does that impact the budget going forward this year? Sorry. Not sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I'm surprised it took this long for you to ask that.
Well, sometimes,
So I guess I would have to answer it like this, and I'll start by kind of rehashing what I said earlier. When I let in, I gave my opinion. I said, look, there are no easy cuts at all,
right?
And every cut that you make, somebody is getting, for lack of a better way for me to say it, somebody's getting hurt. Somebody's getting impacted. Maybe that's a better way to say that. Somebody's getting negatively impacted. I'm not
saying that any of this is easy.
And for probably the last, I'm going to say probably the last 5 or 6 years, I leave these meetings during the budget time so incredibly frustrated because it seems like we are, figuratively, we're counting frickin' paper clips and erasers to try to figure out where the hell we're going to cut to get to a palatable number to be able to then, have the voters decide whether they're going to approve it or not approve it to operate the town.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it to be one of the most frustrating and anxious and disappointing processes that I participate in as a member of the board. That on its face, you're right. What is $37,000 going to do to the budget? You're right. That on its face, that alone does nothing. But it's a series of cuts that finally allows you to get to a number that we think is going to be palatable by the taxpayers. And
But what's the difference between
And-
1.5 and 1.52?
I guess the difference is
Public perception?
that's important to you.
Yes.
May not be important to somebody
But
else.
to your next door neighbor that has never had any kids, that's not important. That's not important to them. And I don't mean that in the terms of to say that I don't think it's important. I'm going back to kind of what I said before, where everything's going to have an impact. There's no easy answer. We cut the retainage number for the Jewett City Fire Department down by, I don't know, $14,000 or something
15,
like that.
yeah.
And it has to do with stipends for the volunteers. I'm hoping that we're wrong. I'm hoping that his number was spot on, and I'm hoping that he comes back and he says, "Hey, I gave you that number, and here's what it is, and now I need you to make an appropriation for us because we did have that much volunteerism." That's a tremendous problem to have. But when you're trying to figure out where the hell you're going to cut this to try to get to a
Right.
number, there's just nowhere to cut.
There's no fat. We've talked about
so-
this before. There's no
so
fat
you
in this
try
budget.
to, so you try to take that and over the last year, and you probably had these conversations with Ryan. Ryan had a conversation with me when I went to the rec meeting. Look, I hate to admit when I'm wrong. It's a vanity thing. Nobody likes to admit when they're wrong, but I don't have a problem admitting when I'm wrong when I am. And I told Ryan, yep, I was wrong. His comment at our meeting last year was, I bring in $209,000 myself. Just imagine what I'll do if I have another full timer. So there was kind of an implicit statement there that obviously revenues were going to go up.
Sure.
Somehow over the course of 1 year, in my head, it got manifested into, wait, you said that you were going to double your revenues. Well, no, he says, hey, look at the meeting. I didn't say that. Oh, shit. You're absolutely right, Ryan. I'm going to make sure that the members know that you didn't say that, because if their vote was predicated on my misremembering, then I want to make sure that they have that, that information. But I looked at it not in terms of, look, I'm not looking for him to be a school system model. Somebody on the rec commission asked that. Do we need to change how we go about doing things? Do we need to change our model? I said, no, I don't think everybody on the board is looking for you to have like a model similar, like the school does, where it's
Right.
this. The understanding, I think, is that typically your programming pays for itself. So when I just looked at things, and I told you, I've got to do my best to take any emotion out of it, because otherwise you're never going to be able to make any cuts. And I looked at it and I just simply said, look, here's where we were revenue-wise last year. Here's where we were programming-wise last year. Some of the programming went up a little bit. If I've got to make a hard cut, I've got to make that decision. If we bring them back down to, if we reduce the funding to make that a half-time position, you're still about the same because your revenue numbers really didn't change. Your programming may get throttled back a little bit, and when I weigh that and I say, okay, does it make, and here's how you look at it, and there's going to be nuances. People are going to, because I'm just going to throw, titles out there. You look at it and you say, okay, though there's the assistant, that's where we were last year. If I've got to cut that same thing, do you take the building official and do you only make them part-time? Do you take your planning and zoning guy? Do you only make them part-time? There's only one of them. Do you take, so it's like one of those, so if you're trying to figure out how do you reduce, there's no crystal ball. There's no easy answer. And no matter what, the answer is going to be wrong. My answer is not the only way. I mean, it was just my opinion. That's what I told the board. I don't want to influence you. I just want everybody to understand kind of my thought process. Everybody else, There's 7 people there. There should be 7 different opinions, 7 different methodologies on how we get to where we think it should be. And to your point earlier, there should be 7 different numbers on where we all think we want to, end up. And all 7 of those are going to be right, but all 7 of those are going to be wrong at the same time, because we've just kind of reached that point, in my opinion, where I think that the taxpayers either can no longer, or are very close to no longer being able to shoulder the burden of regular tax increases just to fund operating costs, just your normal operating obligations. I mean, that's just kind of where we are. We know where we need to be, and it's going to kind of, I hate to say it, push come to shove. Like I said, I really thought we should be at a 1.7 just based on where I thought the proper mill rate should settle in after you take out that 1.1. I don't like that. I know how it's going to impact,
Right.
our ability to operate at home. I look at my own checkbook. I look at that operating. I know how it's going to operate. I know that, okay, well, I guess this is off the table. I know that's off the table. And we're only talking about, we focus on always what's the value of a house. You throw your vehicles in the mix, and you're like, holy Christ, what now? So that's that hard part. There's, and I'm not looking for the violins. I mean, it's not an easy answer. But to your point, that alone, how much impact does it have? Well, not a lot. But then Wayne says, hey, my hot button topic is, my hot button topic is the fire department. I really don't think how much is that going to matter in the grand scheme? Okay, now we've got 2, and now I leave and somebody else pulls me down there and says, hey, you guys cut,
30,000 for the roads.
That's my hot. Okay, so before you know it, we're kind of right back.
And they're building a coup on Latham.
Where we are.
We got the first line of
he's
defense
right.
out there with muskets and
roads were a big topic last year. They're a big topic this year.
Every year.
Fact, Tina and Lori said, if they're hearing it most from the residents about roads, and taxes and things like that. So things cost money.
So really, to go back to this is why I asked that question.
Sure.
And number one, Phil Michelle, who is the second full time, or I don't know.
He's like the assistant director.
Right, assistant director, right? Full-time position.
Yeah.
He really hasn't had that position until what? September? October?
I don't know. I was on the assumption he got hired he got hired full-time as soon as the budget went through, but I have no idea.
No, he's only had about 7 months. He only had about 7 months to go ahead.
Okay.
All right. So
Ryan said he was busy with the summer camp, July, August, and then he actually started started getting into the actual work September.
So he's getting cut or proposed.
Yep.
And he really hasn't even had a chance to really dig into the batter's box. First thing. Second thing is if we are going to run the town like a business, you don't properly, I don't believe you open up a storefront and in 7 months you say, screw it, I'm done. And then we move on. I think you got to give this guy a chance. And I think the rec department needs a chance. This is just my own personal opinion. I don't
think you're wrong. I don't think that's incorrect. I don't think you're wrong.
And I think you got to give it. And that's why I said, what's it really gonna? And I understand your point. Well, you got the fire department here, and you've got the rec department here, and public health and safety. They're not getting their $1,000. You know what I mean? Everybody's included. But for me, sorry, love you, but public health and safety is not bringing in anything, right? Jewett City Fire Department, those guys risk their lives every call. I don't understand, and I will gladly pay that.
Well, and if
you as a police officer, I'm sure you know that,
and if
formally,
and if they overrun that line item, it's not as though they're not going to get paid. It just means that we'll have to take it out of the exchange account or, whatnot to cover that.
I'm just a big proponent of what they're trying to do. at the youth center, and I think you're gonna bite off your nose to spite your face. If you cut that.
I don't think you're incorrect, Mike. I don't think that
I'm not
that's-
saying no.
I mean, I don't think that's. I don't disagree with.
This is
I
a
don't
debate
disagree with
between
that.
you and I.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that logic at all. I mean, there's nothing for me to argue with you about on that because I don't disagree with that logic. Not at all. Like I said, I think that logic is sound. But do we want to come in at a $2 million increase if we don't make a lot of those cuts? Do we,
I think you're right. If you'd have sat at a 1.7, you probably would have been able to keep some of these important things, the road, the assistant, the firehouse thing, stuff like that.
And it's hard because there are other people that have philosophy of saying, just take it out of capital. I don't see it. I don't see, but I mean, seriously, I don't see it. Because I don't, you know what I mean? Hey, we're
Absolutely.
buying, we're saving money to buy equipment, or we're doing some paving, but I don't really see it. If they're not on my road, I don't see it. I'm not impacted. Just take it out of capital. If some people say, oh, it's really easy. Hey, the Board of Ed budget is so high. That is such a huge burden. There's got to be a lot of waste there. Just take that money right out of all the Board of Ed. And I don't have kids that go through the school system anymore, so I don't care. I mean, it's just, but those are the comments that I hear all the time. And like, you have to just kind of recognize, that's your opinion and you're basing it on what's important to you.
Right.
But it's a much broader and bigger picture than that. And I don't
You got to look at what's
like
going to do to
I
the
don't,
community, not what's
Right.
going to.
What
hard.
is
You're
the
talking about-
impact overall? That's
we-
what we were talking about. The assistant. We were talking about the capital cuts from the school and losing a couple positions at the school.
You've got to invest in the community,
Right.
and that's what this comes down to. We can, you can have 0% increases. You can cut people to the point where they're no longer effective on, general government on the school side, where it's a bare bones. Hey, here's your MBR. That's all you're getting funded on. But look, this is an investment in the community. You want the community to continue to grow. Some of that demographic that business looks at as well.
Yeah.
Cut capital down to nothing. You're not going to have anything. I mean, we listened to, Griswold Fire Department talk about their rescue truck, and I made the joke about the barn fireman. Anywhere else, you get a 20-something-year-old vehicle that's only got 27,000 miles on. You're like, woohoo! I just hit the jackpot. And this thing, from what I understand, is it's technically legally roadworthy, but for how much longer?
Yeah.
Because 10 years ago or 12 years ago or whatever it was, we didn't want to spend $175,000 on a wash plant. Wash plant that would taken care of the bottoms of the $1 million pieces of equipment that we have at the firehouses, the $200,000-$300,000 pieces of equipment that we've got at Public Works for $175,000 investment. My opinion, that needs to be fast tracked.
Yeah.
It's probably going to cost us $325,000 or $350,000 now, because here we are a decade later. But to what end?
Yeah. So that's when I went through the capital budget with Jim Barney. Jim Barney was all the opinion that we need to take one item in capital and just pay for it, so we have something done. And that's one of the items that Todd brought up about the wash plant and all that stuff, and I'm in complete agreement with that. So we can extend the life of these vehicles. Yep. Because a fire truck nowadays is $1 million. So
well, you got to look at it like this: we are stewards of your money. We're stewards of the town's money. That sometimes you've got to spend a little bit of money to protect your assets, and that's kind of how I look at the wash plant. That for whatever reason it wasn't done a little over a decade ago. It needs to be done now, because we kicked that can down the road and we're throwing good money at bad.
Right. Right. I'm in agreement with that.
If I could stop hacking for a second.
Oh, you okay?
I'm fine. It's just a fur ball.
All right, it's rolling into 10:30 here. I'm like, I think this man's got a job to go to.
Yeah, at some point I do need to get back
And-
to my paying job.
And I'm
They're
going to
realize
go
I'm not
call
there.
911 for Mike.
No, I'm good. Thank you very much. Meetings tonight. What time does it start?
7.
7:00 at the Griswold Middle School. And that'll be in the cafeteria. So
Yes.
drive around the back and just look for the people.
Yes.
Both of them.
Yes.
Well, good luck tonight.
Yeah, thanks.
And please don't take a beating. If not, challenge them to a Texas death match.
I mean, I look at it this way. Anybody that wants to come and speak, I encourage it because we've got to get some passion back into, I want to hear what's important to you.
But be respectful about it.
See, that's the thing too, and that I really feel is very, very important is that each and every member of the Board of Finance, as other boards, they are volunteers. They are not paid for what they are doing. So to me, that just screams, well, they're doing what they really believe is right. Whether you agree with it or not, you said, with all the members of the board, you're going to have 7 different opinions. And I think that's probably what you want anyway, because then you discuss. So anyway, good luck tonight.
Thanks.
And thanks. I appreciate you coming in here as well.
Anytime.
And that's it. I know you got to get to work. So, all right, you. See you Thursday.
Yeah, we'll be talking Thursday. Bring the tarot cards.
All right. Psychic Thursday on our way on Thursday. And